Welcome to the Inspiring International Potential podcast. Created by GC International Trade Northwest, this podcast aims to fire up businesses in the northwest of England to explore their international growth potential. Throughout the series, we'll provide the latest updates and key insights on international markets, sectors, and top tips on overseas trading. You'll hear international trade specialists share their expert knowledge, motivating and informing you on market insights, policies, strategy, and finance to help your international growth journey. My name is John Quinton-Barber, and I'm the host of today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the use of SEO for the international market with my guest, Emma Jones, International Trade Advisor, who has been working in the field for the past 10 years, and Tim McCloud, Managing Director of Strategic Communication Company, TMC. But before we start, I'd like to signpost you to the GC International website, where you'll find information about up-and-coming masterclasses. Go to international.growthco.uk/events. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Now, Emma, I always say this, International Trade Advisor. What a fantastic title. Look, if I was at school and I was going down the careers office and I was knocking on that door and saw that on the computer, that's what I'd want. So very quickly, just tell the listener, what is an International Trade Advisor and how do you get into it?
We're busy, I'll tell you that. So an international trade advisor, we, in a nutshell, help grow companies' exports overseas. And I got into it because I was an expat for 20 years. I lived in the Middle East for 17 years and France for 3. And then I moved back to the UK a number of years ago, and I was working for a marketing agency when my baby was young. But really my experience, my network, my value is international rather than just UK focused. And I missed that. And I felt that, my skill sets weren't being optimized or made use of, and I'm very passionate about growing the GDPR, supporting the communities, growing businesses. So it was something that I really wanted to use. And I started working as a consultant actually, on the framework for SEO. And then, like you said, I saw this job advertised one day saying International Trade Advisor, and I went, I can do that. So, yes, and I have to say it's a very fulfilling role. So we are busy. So, you start off maybe talking about China in the morning and by the evening you're in Brazil, and everything in between as well. So yeah, it's very exciting, and it's nice to know what's going on worldwide with different markets in terms of like e-commerce and SEO as well, and see things, especially during COVID-19, how different countries are adapting, market and opportunities that are emerging as well.
So I wasn't wrong, Emma. What a fantastic job and great job title. So I'm sold. Down the careers office, I am sold for that background. But how lucky we are to have you today, because today is all about international SEO. What is international SEO?
So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimisation, and a lot of people get afraid of SEO. What it really means is, how is your website communicating to search engines? How are you communicating to your potential target market? And how do you drive more traffic to your website? I built a lot of websites, from the 90s when they started off, and we all had a drop down off a drop down off a drop down, and then Flash all happened. And then what happened is when I left Dubai and then I went to France, which is a lot bigger market than the Middle East, realised that my digital skills weren't as good. And I was working as a sales and marketing director for a property portal. And I knew the traffic that on the website wasn't what was being reported from the analytics. And I knew that the SEO wasn't right, but my knowledge wasn't good enough to ask the right questions. And this is why it's very important to have good suppliers as well, and people that are honest with you. So I started to learn SEO, that's about 10 years ago now. So it was before Hummingbird came in. And so in those days, SEO was something of a dark art. There were a lot of smoke and mirrors around it. People didn't really understand it. A lot of new buzzwords that frightened people. So I was just determined to debunk all this, to learn it, to provide genuine services, and really then so people can benefit from that, and also for people not to be afraid of it. they're just buzzwords, and it's just a different word for index. That's it. All Google is and all Bing is and all other search engines, they're just big databases. That's all they are. It's just like a big filing cabinet or a big library, and it's how do you find the index card or the book in the library. In this case, it's a website on a search engine. That's all it is. It signals to that thing that you want to find.
We're talking about good suppliers, and we're really lucky to have Tim on the podcast today, who's got an excellent reputation in delivering SEO and working with businesses and delivering workshops. Tim, have you got anything to add to Emma or challenge Emma on that, or agree or disagree? Let's have a little debate if you can.
Well, I think the one thing both Emma and I do agree on is that there is very little trust in the sector. And it's unfortunate that the buzzwords that are put in there become more and more technical, and people feel that they are not allowed to understand what it is. And that's unfortunately that the sector has done that. My role and has been with these delivering workshops and also working with clients is to empower and demystify those clients, because to get that subject, break it open, so then at that point we can educate everybody. And as Emma says, when you look at it fundamentally, it is far simpler than you actually think it is. And if you take Pareto's law, the 80-20, we're missing out, which we're looking for that magic 20%. What we need to be doing is concentrating on building the solid foundations that gives you the majority of your the majority of the results you're seeking.
Our listeners are tuning in because we are talking about internationalization, international market, exporting, and we have some rich content coming down the way in all of the podcasts. And this is a very fascinating one about international SEO. How important is international SEO in international trade? Emma, any thoughts on that?
For me, it's a basic fundamental, whether or not you're selling online or you're not. It's understanding your clients' habits in different markets, and outside of the UK, most people are on a mobile and they're looking at your website, first port of call. They'll look for something, they'll do a search. It might even be an Amazon search, or it might be a Google search or a Bing search or another marketplace search. But if you haven't got your keywords and your SEO strategy, you're not going to rank. And then there's, no engagement there. There's no initial interest. I think some recent statistics show now that actually the sales process has gone mainly from like a person to person to, it's really everyone will do the research online. And then it's only really the last bit now of that sales pipeline, where there's actually human to human engagement. You'll already be on the shortlist. So your website, whether or not you're selling online or not, is absolutely fundamental to your lead generation and the growth of your business internationally.
So Tim, if a client came to you who wants to export, what's one of the first things that you would do before talking to them?
First of all, it's got to be based around measurement. It always has to be. There's a number of softwares, and we would always run a series of tools on their website, see what's going on, see what the competitors are doing. So it is important. This is and can be factual rather than feeling. And that's a really important thing. Measurement is absolutely key to all of this. So the first thing, there's got to be a series of measurements and performance criteria put onto it. But using softwares out there that will really prove user behavior, user flow, tracking through the website, but also how is that site being ranked? How visible is the site? And there are a number of different ways to look at visibility rather than just at the top of the rankings.
So what I'm hearing there, absolutely, website is massively important. So if you're tuning into this podcast and thinking about SEO and international SEO, I imagine the second thing you're thinking about now is your website, because sometimes we see companies neglect their website, and sometimes we see companies invest a huge amount of money into their website where it's not working for them. And again, Emma, have you got any tips on that, about just thinking about the first stage in this is about your web development, your website? Yeah,
analyze your website, see where it's at, and do a competitor analysis as well. And and look at what keywords they're using. They say how many backlinks they've got. Really, it's understanding. It's all about research, understanding what are you saying. What I find is a lot of businesses actually don't understand what their website is saying to their potential target market. They think they're saying it, but they're not. And they haven't got their keywords there. And also maybe sometimes they're using too many UK-centric keywords rather than international words. I mean, even though, obviously the US speaks English, but, spellings are different. Some phraseology is different. And then obviously in different languages as well. So it's understanding what are people searching for. Otherwise, because you can put keywords in all the time and phrases, and if nobody's actually looking for them, you're not going to get anywhere.
And that's great tips from both of you. And I'm just thinking here, just talking through practically then. So if I'm a business that's looking to export and I'm looking at my international SEO, do you, Emma, can we access any workshops around this? What kind of support can we access from you? And Tim, let's just pretend I'm this fictitious company that's actually looking to invest in this. I'm looking to Emma and to GC International Trade for the support and the workshops, but then I will get into the market looking for an agency. What am I looking for in an agency that's going to help me grow my business internationally? So Emma, what tips, what support from get-go are you going to give me? I'm this fictitious company, and then I'm going to come to you, Tim, as our first bit of a relationship and say, okay, what can you offer me?
Well, I would do an audit on your website. That it's a service that I provide, so you can understand like where you are benchmarked against your competitors already. Also, where are you ranking organically? It's a nice way to understand maybe potential export markets where your keywords are already like pinging up by the bots or being picked up by the bots. And then we would basically look at things like Google Trends as well and Google keyword research to find volumes. So I actually have created what I call my 5A action plan. Okay, so first of all, it's about analyze. Okay, so it's checking your current ranking and identifying target keywords. Then it's assessing. So it's creating a seed list. Now, this is your wish list. Okay. So you create your seed list, but then you test your keywords for your search volume. So it might be that you want to sell car boots in the States, but you find out it's car trunks in the States. I can't think of another phrase anyway. But so you assess it, then you apply it. Now, what I find is a lot of people do analyze and assess, but they don't apply it. This was a big thing in marketing a few years ago about implementation, actually. So it is fixing your on-site technical issues, and it is optimizing your pages. And then it's action, which is creating content and building quality backlinks. And once you've done all that, the fifth A, you do it all again.
Love it. So I've come away from that day. I must admit, I've probably come away wanting to turn to a pint of Tetris after that, because it's a long day. I've been having a good session with Emma. Really good. The 5 A's. It's drilled into me. And then I'm walking out of the building. I'm thinking, okay, I need to apply this. And I'm going to you, Tim. I find you, Tim. What you tell me about the bit of the journey that you'll take me on then?
Yeah, I think the first part is sort of building on what Emma has said there. It is, we need to humanize our SEO strategy. We keep forgetting, we keep on looking at Google and the other search engines thinking we must please those. We must not please those. We must look at our customers first. This is a customer focused activity. We talked before with regards to the pipeline becoming more digital. People are making their decisions prior to human contact. But at that point, we must still look at our clients with regards to them being human beings. And then with that in mind, with that profiling section in mind, understanding who we're talking to, we also need to know what our goals are. A lot of organizations, they try to put their SEO plan and strategy across every single last product, and they don't have the resource to be able to do that. So first of all, then looking at the goals, let's look at what you're trying to achieve. Where is the most profitable piece of business? How can we help that move forward and grow? And then we can bring the next phase on. So beyond that, it really is, as I just mentioned before, is profiling. You have to profile your audience and then categorize your products. And there is, something within Google at the minute, they're now talking about entities, and they're talking about structures and breaking down your products and services and packaging them together so that people can really understand what this is. It is very much Google's version of this is a human interaction rather than just a technical interaction. It's not technical. It's always been human. But we've tried to trick the system and fool Google by spending money on techniques that are not customer centric.
Love it. So I've got my 5 A's. Great challenge for you, Emma, and then fantastic counsel from you, Tim. So that for listeners is kind of like the entry is what you want to get into. Emma, go on.
Yeah, I think what Tim just said then was really important actually about the human element. Okay, I think if anything as well during COVID-19, we have become more caring as a community. I hope, people at the end of business emails are writing, take care, hope you're safe, and I think that's it. People have got to realise that, okay, so the interface is like a search engine, but it's somebody accessing that information. So it's like your tone of voice, you shouldn't be afraid to show your personality, and it's not just your website, it's your social media, it's your entire digital footprint, and as Tim said about the profiling as well, it's reaching your target market at a grassroots level. Don't talk down to them. You don't patronize them, and a lot of people they talk about features rather than benefits. When people are doing research, I want to know, why would I buy your product? Because you're going to make my life better.
Love it.
The service is going to make my business better, or the product's going to make my life easier, or I'm just going to make me happier. Whatever it is, you need to communicate with people in a way that they understand and they relate to.
Tim.
Yeah, it is absolutely fascinating, because there are lots of algorithms that make it technical. But if you take one of them, it was the EAT algorithm, which is about your expertise, your authority, and your trustworthiness. Now, with that, although it's not necessarily a ranking factor, it's absolutely key in being able to influence people and guide them through to build that sort of, are you going to be the organization that I purchase from? And so with that, you can only do that. So it's about how you then tier that information across and to ensure that you can build that. But, Google is looking at, are you the expert? If we talk to our customers, we would talk and communicate in a different way. As Emma said, when we reply to our emails, we reply in a far more caring way. That needs to transcend back into the digital experience, but then build that technical foundation that has to happen in order for the website to perform, through the search engines.
I love it. I'm all a big fan of speaking fluent human, as I call it. I think it's fantastic. You're listening to the Inspiring International Potential podcast, all about international SEO. Guests today are Emma and Tim. And it's a fascinating debate and some great insights from both guests. Don't go anywhere, because the best is yet to come. So obviously talking about COVID, Tim, and the impact of COVID on you and the business, just talk us through how you responded to that. And if you have in any way innovated, use this opportunity to pivot, as Emma quite rightly talked about pivoting. What's your journey been like over the last 100 odd days?
Yeah, it has been absolutely fascinating. People learning to communicate, larger teams learning to communicate remotely. That even as agencies, there are a lot of online softwares that we use as an organization. We saw a little bit of this coming, so we did a couple of dress rehearsals with regards to working at home. We had the flexibility of people working, to get quiet space away from a busy studio. So it's interesting how now we communicate, and we almost have to pace ourselves a little bit. And what I would describe is see what's occurring is digital fatigue, because what we're doing is we're sitting at our screens. And the idea where it used to be flexible in the home environment was a great experience. It was different to the office. We've got team members now that are craving to get back to the office. And so they miss that immediacy of contact. But it makes you then understand how it must be for your customers. Because without the face-to-face, and the subject we're talking about today, SEO, we need to be able to communicate efficiently and effectively with them and get that onboarding process happening very, very quickly. A search engine effectively is just a directory. What we've got are those very few words, those snippets and headlines. How do we communicate that way? So I think the COVID and SEO, the 100 days, to date has been exciting, exhilarating, but also pressure. And as a manager director, my focus, as I said to my team, my focus is on you. Your focus is on our customers. And with that, I said, I'll look after you. You look after the customers. And by prioritizing that in a very simple way has just allowed us to kind of find a new way of working.
Great. I love that, the leadership there, Tim, and also the empathy that you talk about with customers and everyone else, and it goes back to the theme, really, doesn't it? Even with the SEO, about tone of voice and behaviours and listening. Personally, I'm working from home. I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my house, but I can't wait to get away from home. And I miss the commute. I miss the decompression of a commute. But that's another podcast. I want you guys, particularly Emma, I think, I'm going to say this, you probably recognise this as well when you reflect on your role. You're about improving lives. You really are about helping people to improve their lives through investing in SEO or investing in their businesses and supporting them. You must come across some really good moments where you've helped and supported and seen businesses go on that journey, and any good case studies. Have you got any examples where you've helped them with SEO, for example, and they've smashed it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a few actually, obviously, but I think one that stands out in mind is I did an audit, and we talked about the keywords, and then it wasn't implemented as they thought it was. So they did like some of the changes on the on-page SEO to the page titles and the meta descriptions, optimize the images to make sure that they were, below the 100. 190 KB? Tim will correct me on that. Anyway, but they did all that. And then, on their social media, they weren't linking back. They weren't using the hashtags. They had different suppliers. And then you can only lead so much. And then they were like, why aren't we getting sales? Why aren't we getting traffic to the website? I went, well, you haven't implemented the SEO, and they went, no, but we have. I went, no, but you haven't actually. So then I did another audit for them, but with a competitor analysis as well. And that went a lot more in detail. And I went, here, this really shows you. And they went, right, we've got it now. And then trying to do some advertising campaigns as well. Again, trying to do a quick fix and, and they'd spent somewhere just under like £4,000 to £5,000, over 3 months on online advertising without really having a strategy for it. And I went, well, do you realise that, if you'd have done that 6 months ago, your SEO would have gone up, if you'd have put that amount of money into a 6-month campaign or something like that, you'd be in a lot better position than you are now. So then they finally went, okay, what do we really need to do? And I went, well, we'll go back to the strategy and we'll go through it again and we'll go through the 5 A's. Okay. And then now, so after 3 months, just 3 months of doing the SEO strategy, they saw a massive spike in their sales and started to generate a lot more revenue. So it basically paid for itself, within 3 months actually, which is a really short lead time for SEO because it is a long burner.
So that's brilliant to hear, Emma. And so for anyone who's tuning in and listening, the 5 A's, which Emma talked about earlier on in the podcast, and strategy. I think, the key takeaway there is strategy. Tim, moving to you and your business and your many clients, I'm sure you've got numerous success stories. Is there anything that you can, and that resonates today with you and you'd like to share?
Yes, I mean, we have got some amazing clients, and so to single one out feels a little bit sort of unkind. But I think with regards to the podcast today, we've got a client called Hydraulics Online, and when we first were introduced together, what we were looking at was a site that was poorly performing, and we were looking at it with regards to and investigate why and how. And again, we applied a number of softwares to that site to sort of measure what was going on. And as with all sites, as they evolve, sometimes they get fragmented. And at that point, what we could see is the site was fragmented. There were a series of bad links that had been built up in the background as well that was causing issues. And when you measure it, even though there was a reasonable flow of users to it, we were looking at approximately 40% of those were toxic. So at that point, people were bouncing into and out of the site. So the bounce rate was incredibly high. So we looked at the categorization of it. And we started with those fundamentals, and we realized that the categories were split into sort of divisions that didn't need to be there. So we brought them back as viable products. So you might have one product with a series of options. That helped the user flow through the site. So, and it also then avoids duplicate content on the site. So at that point, which is certainly a fundamental no-no. We do not want any duplicate content out there. So creating these viable products, what we then did was then show that there was a depth of content, which again, on that user journey, user flow, sort of improved the perception of that particular organization. So working together, and I think that was fundamentally it. And our head of digital is Helen from Hydraulics has used his quote several times. It's delivering healthy pressure to each other, challenging, having that challenge to say, look, what are we trying to achieve? What do we need to do next? And with that, that's developed a really strong relationship. And I think it's a model relationship when it comes to the transparency, building of that trust. We can achieve so much more now. And I guess, for example of that, within 6 months, we've doubled the visitors to the site.
Wow. So trust, relationships, viable products, improving results. It's not hard. Do the job properly, and you get the results. It's as simple as that. We've now got, the other thing, this is, we talked before about interpreting data. It's so important. We always talk about, well, increased lead times is a positive signal. Well, it can sometimes not be. If people can't find what they're looking for on the website, then they're going to jump away. So at that point, we've reduced the amount of time on the site and the clicks, but we can then track the fundamental goal, which is increased sales. So at that point, it's ensuring now there are now over 800 users per day in a very little niche area on a part of this site. And at that point, what we've now got is a very, very solid organization that has the ability to trade internationally. Fantastic. You are listening to the Inspiring International Potential podcast. And if you thought SEO wasn't inspiring, let me say you're wrong. We had some fantastic insight from two real specialists, Tim and Emma. We're coming towards the end of the program. Can you believe it? And I'm going to ask you now just to give the listeners some of your final tips and some real key advice to them as they now tune out of this and look to implement some of their own SEO. So, Emma, what's your key advice?
Research. It's like audit your website, audit your competitors, research the keywords for the volume searches, look at the most common keywords by countries, implement the strategy, add value as well. People, when they do blogs, I'm not a big fan of blogs, but it's not the blog itself, it's calling it a blog. I think it should be called hints and tips or added value or something like that. Add value through content for your customers to benefit from, that they will learn and improve their own experience through. So it's added value. And then, make sure you always link back to the website and then do it all again.
And don't forget your 5 A's, which I've learned. I've learned the 5 A's today. I'll be tested on them. That's fantastic. And, absolutely fantastic. Tim, any advice to the listeners as they are listening in now to find out some of the kind of final hints and tips from you? Yeah, absolutely. SEO is about visibility. So we need to think through and round the subject. So we need to prioritize the onboarding process and having that focus clearly, which is on digital. But we must humanize our SEO strategy. So we must concentrating on helping our customers. And fundamentally, your SEO strategy will reward you for that with stronger ranking if you focus on your customers first. And I think the last point is with Emma, 100% here, measure it. You've got to measure it, and this is an ongoing process. Thank you. And on that note, thank you to everyone for listening to this episode. If you're interested in finding out more about international SEO, we've got a handy guide on the subject we can send you. Simply email marketing@tradenw.org or visit international.growthco.uk to download it. Watch out for our up-and-coming episodes where we're talking about the healthcare and chemical sectors and exploring opportunities in international markets such as India, the Middle East and Africa. My greatest thanks go to you, Emma, and to Tim for humanising SEO and for talking so passionately about it and for being the experts that you are. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.